Is it actually
talk about. So,
what? Well, just leave it. We'll see.
I had two granddaughters, but one of them went down today.
not that far, I'm going to the water. It's just like domino effect, the domino fall.
Test, 2, 3. Oop. There you go.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot. I had one. No. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, they don't wash them. They don't
My mom did.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to worship here at Collinsville Christian Church. We're so glad to have you with us today. Got a hum, don't we? You all hear that hum? I think this mic's way too loud, guys. Bring it down. We're going to blast everybody out here. I think that's better. Okay, so we're glad to have you with us today. Welcome to worship. Does it feel like summertime after yesterday? Holy moly, it got toasty roasty yesterday, didn't it? But it is, well, I'll just tell you guys, it's my kid's fault. Chris Haywood, our middle child, does not like cold winter. So he was complaining a week ago and said, oh, I'm tired of the rain and the clouds. And we said, no, enjoy it while you can. And he goes, I'm praying for God to make it hot. So I'm telling him, it's his fault. Yesterday was miserable, but today's not so bad. And we're glad to have you with us. As we prepare for worship today, I'll remind you of a couple of important things, and that is communion is double-stacked cups, and we invite you to gather those if you haven't already done that whenever you can. You don't have to right now, but just whenever. And we will do communion, as we do every week, at the end when we are responding to the message. Okay, so at response time, as we're singing Jesus Messiah, during that time when you're prepared, you take communion. Also, I'll remind you we have the offering trays up front and in the back. Just coming out of COVID, we're still not passing those, just, to be kind of safe. So if you have your offering and your tithes, you can put those in those plates as well here at our greeting time, which we'll do in just a few minutes. We got some donuts over there, coffee in the room. Please help yourself. Also, the white table set up to my left is from Matt last week. You remember Matt, one of our missionaries, was here. He and his wife, Katia, are moving to the University of Arkansas. Go Hogs. Are you a Hogs fan? No, okay. No. No. I grew up in Little Rock, so I'm still a Hogs fan, kind of. I can be all things to all men, you all. There you go. You're from Kansas, I'll say to your face, go Jayhawks. What? Yeah, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but so Matt and Connie are moving closer and gave us a big update last week, and we were glad to have him and the kids with us. Man, those kids are growing up. Wow. So this week, a couple of things are coming up this summer that we want you to know what's happening. So let me just give you that real fast. As you know, many of the students who came up through our church in the group of Catherine and Hope and Patrick and Andrew, they're spread all over the United States this summer doing ministry and internships. And we're starting over with a new group of students. We're going to be taking our first group of junior high and high school students to summer camp, to CIY Move and CIY Mix. These students have never gone to this event before. They've never done any of these things. They haven't been at Ozark Christian College. They haven't gone to summer camp with us. And so we believe we're starting over. And Diane and I were talking. We remember all those years ago when Earl went with us and we took one van of about 6 or 7 students, and Grant Patton was one of those kids. And we were like, well, we've got some kids. And from there, it blew up into groups of 30s and 40s and 50s going to summer camp. And we believe that's what's going to be happening again. So to that end, we want to show you what we've been showing the kids this summer in regards to what they're going to be doing. This is the promo video for junior high camp we're going to be going to in July. Make sure the sound's on and we're not going to blare everybody, okay? So just so you'll know, this is junior high camp, and then next Sunday we'll show you the high school one. Here we go. Turn up a little bit.
into your heart, and you can't just act like you're fine, but you can't just act like you're godly. You have to actually allow God into your heart to actually act as God.
Many of you know that summer camp is near and dear to my heart. This particular summer camp was started when I was a little kid by a man in our home church in Tulsa. So I've known it all my whole life. I grew up going to it. Part of the reason I am in ministry, accepted the call to ministry at this particular summer camp. So that's our junior high version. We're going to be taking a couple kids to that this summer at John Brown University in Siloam Springs. And then next week we'll show you high school camp. And we're going to be taking some kids to that in Lincoln, Nebraska. At response time today, I will remind you of this, but we're going to ask you to pray for our kids and our adults going. Larry, you want to go hang out with about 38,000 of your favorite junior high kids? They estimate that they'll run about 38,000 students through camps this summer all across the United States. That's about half what they did pre-pandemic. But we're excited to be able to be back. Last summer was hard on our students. So, but anyway, we're going to ask you to take one of these if you are willing to pray over a student who's going to camp this summer and the adults going with them. I'll remind you of that at response time. That'll be one of the things we'll do at response, along with communion. Before we dive into worship this morning, though, one thing I want to do, can we pray for you? Is that okay? So you may have seen that Joanne has got some cancer going on, and so she's just gotten that diagnosis and hasn't even been to a specialist, hasn't had a biopsy, hasn't done anything. But anytime you get that, that's a scary thing, right? So we're going to do something we used to do. If you're comfortable, we used to do this at the end of church. I want to do it now. If you're comfortable, we're going to come over here by Joanne. We're going to put our hands on her and we're going to pray for her, okay? So if you're comfortable, come on over. If you're not, that's okay. You can stay where you're at, pray where you're at. And then after that, we're going to have our greeting time and we'll do church. Richard, you can get in here too if you want. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Everybody come on over. Just put your hands over here on Joanne or on somebody's shoulders. That'll be fine. I'm going to ask Larry to pray and then I'll pray.
Dear Heavenly Father, we lift Joanne up to you this morning, and we know that she's anxious about the report that she got. And I just pray that you would help her to get an appointment with an oncologist, a good doctor, quickly. Help him to do the biopsy, and I pray that you help be the doctor's and nurse's hand, guide them, help them to get a correct, quick test, and I pray she'll get the test results back, and they will show that it's scar tissue or something else, and that it is not cancer. Give her some peace of mind. We pray these things in Jesus' name.
Lord, I agree with Larry in his prayer. Pray that the doctors would move quickly, and I pray also that it would be scar tissue and nothing like cancer. Pray you will give Joanne calmness and peace in your spirit that only you can provide. I thank you for her faith and her gentle spirit. I thank you for her happiness and her kindness. And I just pray for Richard as he stands by her in this time. Pray that you will stay very close to them and they will sense your presence and your peace and your guidance through the Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Okay, so shake some hands, hug some necks, say good morning to somebody, get some coffee, and then we'll start worship. I want you to think about what you were doing yesterday. What did you do yesterday? Maybe you went fishing. Did you go fishing, Larry? Not yesterday. Did you go fishing this week?
No,
So you didn't catch any, didn't have to clean it. You don't clean them anyway, do you?
my gills are getting dry.
Your gills are getting dry. Did you eat ice cream this week?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So every day, Larry is faithful with the ice cream. I'm here to tell you all. I want you to think about what you do yesterday. Did you go grocery shopping? Did you watch TV all day? Did you stay in because it was hot? What did you do yesterday? Now I want you to think about what you did this past week. What did you do last night? Now, stop. And just for a minute, I want you to think, where was Jesus in all of that? Maybe for you, he wasn't anywhere. Maybe in your life, he doesn't play a big part during the week. That's a Sunday thing, right? Maybe for you, it's because you don't know who Jesus is yet. You're like, I don't know. I've heard of him. I heard he was God all my whole life, and I don't know about that. Maybe for you, you've been a lifelong believer, or you converted late. Diane and I were at a concert last night in Joplin, went and saw a Christian band I like, and Diane likes, called We the Kingdom. And it's a dad and his brother and their kids, and they're from North Carolina originally. And he was telling last night how he had grown up in the church, gave his life to Jesus at 5 years old, and then he got off track somewhere along the way and became an alcoholic and was in the throes of alcoholism and addiction. He got into drug addiction. He said, I was even a dealer. He was like, I was dealing drugs. I was dealing hard drugs. But then he told the story about how he hit a low spot in his life and he came to faith in Jesus and has been 30 years clean, which is awesome, right? Pretty cool. Reminds me of the story of Jim. Jim was, gosh, how many years was he clean? 17 years clean. Yo, by the way, Jim invited me one time, or Earl, one of the two, invited me one time to go to one of the AA meetings. And I want y'all to know, so Diane and I went, I think it was at St. Henry's Church in Owasso, and we walked in. Y'all, some of y'all have been lying to me a long time. It is never good for a preacher to walk into an AA meeting and his whole church is members of the group, and he didn't know. I didn't know. I was so surprised. I was like, hey, we're all family here, right? But it was fun. It was a neat surprise. The question, what I'm really leading this up to right now is, who is Jesus? You ever thought about that? Some of us are like, Jesus is God. I am sold out to that. Some of us are like, I don't know who Jesus is. Sometimes you may think you know who Jesus is, but you don't really know who Jesus is. We forget, living in America today, that when Jesus was alive and doing his ministry, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of opinion as to who he is or was and who he was proclaiming to be. He was very controversial. I want you to just listen to the words of this song and try to hear what people were trying to figure out about who Jesus was as we prepare today to get into our message. Start down a little bit.
Who's that man? Thinks he's a prophet. Well, I wonder if he's got something up his sleeve. Where's he from? Who is his daddy? There's rumors he even thinks himself a king. Of the king of paupers, simpletons and rogues. The others all seem to love him, and the drunks propose at a toast, and they say, surely God is with us. Well, surely God is with us, they say. Surely God is with us today. Who's that man? Says he's a preacher. Well, he must be. He's disturbing all our peace. Where's he get off? And what is he hiding? And every word he says, those fools believe. Who could move a mountain? Who would love their enemy? Who could rejoice in pain and turn the other cheek and still say, surely God is with us? Well, surely God is with us. Who say, surely God is with us today? Today, they say, surely God is with us. Well, surely God is with us. They say, surely God is with us. Let's out for the Spirit and belongs to them. Blessed those who make peace. They are God's children. And the bread of life and the way. You hear that man? Believe what he says. Tell me who's that man? They made him a prisoner. They tortured him and nailed him to a tree. Was he so bad? Who did he threaten?
as we talk through our passage today, I want you to be thinking about that. Who is that man? Do I understand who Jesus is? Even though maybe I have followed him all of my life, or maybe I don't know who Jesus is. That's the question that a lot of people were asking in our passage today. If you want to turn there, we're going to be in John chapter 7, verses 1 through 14. That's where we're going to be today. And we're going to look at 3 opinions that were floating around about Jesus. And we're going to look at what people were thinking about him. And then we're going to ask the question, how did Jesus stay focused amid all this confusion and noise? And how do we stay connected to Jesus when there's confusion and noise around us? So let's read our passage together. After this, Jesus, John says, traveled around Galilee. He didn't want to travel in Judea because some evil people there wanted to kill him. Now, it was time for the Feast of Shelters, so Jesus' brothers said to him, "You should leave here and go to Judea so your followers there can see the miracles you do. Anyone who wants to be well known doesn't hide what he does. If you're doing these things, go show yourself to the world." And then notice, John says in verse 5, even Jesus' brothers didn't actually believe in him. Jesus then said to his brothers, "You know, the right time for me has not yet come, but any time is right for you. The world can't hate you, but it hates me because I tell it the evil things it does. So you go on to the feast. I'm not going to go yet to this feast because the right time for me has not yet come." After saying this, Jesus stayed in Galilee. Verse 10. But after Jesus' brothers had gone to the feast, Jesus then went up to the feast also. But he did not let people see him. At the feast, some people were looking for him and saying, "Where's that man?" Within the larger crowd there, many people were whispering to each other about Jesus. Some said, "He's a good man." Others said, "No, he fools the people." But nobody was brave enough to talk out about Jesus openly because they were afraid of the elders. Now, when the feast was about half over, Jesus went to the temple and began to teach. And the people were amazed, and they said, "This man's never studied in school. How did he learn so much?" All right, let's stop there for a second. Today we live in a time when people often talk as though equal opinions were valid. Like you can have a completely opposite opinion from somebody else. You can have yours, I can have mine. And what do we say today? Well, we're both right. We just have to agree to disagree. That's really the society we live in. This is often held to be possible even when the two opinions are completely in opposition to each other. For example, here's how it actually works today. I might say, the color is black. And somebody else might say, no, the color is white. And we both go, well, we're both right. Maybe an example of this, maybe you remember there was a picture that floated around the internet of a dress. And like, you could look at this dress and some people would say, it's blue. And other people would say, no, it's gold. And the people who saw the dress as blue were like, it's not gold. And the people who saw it as gold were like, y'all are crazy, you're colorblind. It's gold. And so finally everybody was like, well, you just have to see it the way you see it, and we're both right. That's an example of how people view differing opinions today in America. In Jesus' day, it didn't work that way. Okay? Opinions were right or wrong. And in this passage, you see there's a couple of different opinions that people had about Jesus, but they weren't right. The vast majority of opinions about Jesus today, what people think about Jesus, are based on wrong information, on prior agendas, on fears, and even on uncertainty. Now, I want to talk today real quick about the 3 groups in this passage who had an opinion about Jesus and the wrong opinions they had about him. So let's start. We're going to run through these pretty quickly. We'll start with his brothers. Basically, this is what they were saying. Jesus, you either got to put up or shut up. It's time, man. That's what they were saying. John 7, verses 3 through 5. Remember what they said to him? Jesus' brothers said, hey, leave here, go to the festival, and go do your stuff there so everybody can see who you are. And then verse 5, remember I pointed out, John says his brothers didn't even actually believe in him. Now, it's interesting to me that his brothers don't buy into Jesus at this point. And one thing you might forget is that one of his brothers was, anybody know who I'm thinking? James, who wrote the book of James, who later came to faith. So here's James, And all of Jesus' brothers going, oh, come on, Jesus, yeah, okay, you really want to prove you are who you are? Just go on up to the festival, do some stuff there. And what they're really saying that's not recorded here is, yeah, just go prove it to us too. That's what they're really saying, including James, who later came to faith. Now, we might expect maybe in Jesus' childhood, maybe there were some signs and some hints that there was some greatness happening here, right? But apparently not. Instead, here's his brothers completely in disbelief of who he is claiming to be. And what are they saying? The point the brothers are making is, go to the feast, go public, go show who you are, and we'll believe you then. They're saying, if you're really the guy, go prove it to everybody, Jesus, and prove it to us too. Undoubtedly, they're thinking Jesus was saying he was going to be the new political Messiah. And I think maybe they're even tired of him going around and preaching and not being around the house and being the older brother and being the person he's supposed to be. I think they're really ready for him to do what they think he's supposed to do. They think it's time for him to rise up to power and stand up to the Roman opposition and kick those guys out of town. You got to remember now, Jesus is the oldest brother. He's the oldest male child in the family. And in that culture and time, the oldest male child had certain expectations. He represented the family. Might it be that his brothers were embarrassed or kind of fed up with Jesus at this point? Their statements here are really a kind of look, if you're going to be the Messiah, then now's the time, because there's this big festival here and everyone will be there. And quite frankly, Jesus, we're really tired of you embarrassing our family, because that's what was going on. They want Jesus to rise up to power, but he can't do that, because what does he say? It's not my time yet, right? It's not time for that to happen. Jesus is on a schedule, and if you've been with us, he often says, not yet. My time has not yet come, right? He says that a lot. Now, one thing that you need to know in our timeline is that Passover, the big Jewish festival that celebrated the Jews coming out of Egypt, remember, and God passing over them with the blood they put on the doorpost of the lamb. That's the biggest Jewish celebration, happens once a year, right? Passover is just 6 months away now from this incident, where Jesus will die as the Passover lamb. The Passover is approximately in April. This Feast of the Tabernacles happens about 6 months earlier in October. So that's where we're at in the timeline. And John's gospel goes from the previous Passover in John 6 to this festival in the fall. It jumps a whole lot of stuff, which Matthew, Mark, and Luke actually record for us. And there's kind of a quirk here in this story. If you picked up on it, it kind of sounds like Jesus lies to his brothers, because what does he say? At first he says, I'm not going to the festival. And then later he actually goes, right? So it kind of sounds like Jesus doesn't tell the truth, right? But what is going on here is that his brothers are not telling him to go to the feast at all. Rather, they're telling him to go there in order to make a show of himself, in order to draw attention to himself. And this, Jesus will not do. This is why Jesus says, I'm not going, because what's he saying? I'm not going in order to do what you want me to do. Sorry, you guys can't tell me what to do. I'm on God's schedule. That's why he says, my time has not yet come. In other words, Jesus says, I'm not going to go there to stand up and give a big speech and overthrow the Roman government and become famous. That's not what I'm here for. So Jesus isn't saying he's not going to go to the feast. He's saying he's not going to go in order to do what they want him to do. So that's his brothers. They don't believe. I mean, they think they know who he is, but they don't really know who he is. Jesus, they don't believe Jesus is who he says he is, and they're tired of the family being embarrassed, and they're kind of fed up with him. The second group we want to talk about is Jesus' enemies. His enemies are basically saying, where is he? Because we're ready to do this guy in. We've had it with this guy. This is verses 1 and 11 in this passage, where John says, after this, Jesus traveled around Galilee. He didn't want to travel in Judea because some evil people there wanted to kill him. And then verse 11, he says, at the feast, some people were looking for him and saying, where's that man at? So they're on the hunt for him, right? Now, if you've been with us, you know that a recurring thing throughout the Gospels, is the desire of the Pharisees and the religious teachers to see Jesus neutralized. They want him taken out, right? They recognize he's a threat to their power and a threat to their lifestyle. He's going to upset the Romans eventually, and the Romans are going to come and hold them responsible, and they're not having that. This is why Jesus stays out in Judea, because of the threat to his life. That's verse 1. As well as the Jewish leaders there, keeping an eye out for him at the feast so they can try to take him out. That's verse 11. Where Jesus' brothers were basically saying, hey, man, it's time for you to prove yourself, right? Put up or shut up. The religious leaders didn't need to see anything else. What they had seen was more than sufficient to convince them. And it didn't convince them that Jesus was who he was claiming to be, rather that he was God, but rather that Jesus is dangerous. He's a threat to their nation. He's a threat to them, to their place in society. They didn't need to see anymore. They had their minds made up. You know, it's easy to say that anyone who would stand against Jesus must just not understand who he really is and what he stands for. But I think that's misguided. See, Jesus came with an agenda, and that agenda puts him at odds with many people, even us today. And what was his agenda? We say it in many ways. What do we say? Well, to restore our broken relationship with God, to pay the price for my sins, to be the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. But I think the gospel sums it up the best. I'm more sinful than I ever dared believe. I am broken. I don't do the things I want to do half the time. Remember, even Paul said that. Holy moly, he said, I'm not any good at not sinning, basically, in Romans, remember? That's really the gospel when you understand it. You just go, I'm going to be a nice driver today. And then when you get home, you go, I'm the worst jerk on the road. I wasn't going to be like that, right? Or you go, I'm going to be nice to the people in the store. And then after you get out of the store, you're like, I don't know who that was in there. But yeah, I guess that was it. Or you say, I'm going to be nice to my spouse today. And at the end of the day, you're just like, no, that wasn't a good day. I'm glad you love me, God, because the second part is, I'm more loved than I ever thought possible, right? That's Jesus' agenda. He came to do the impossible, to not only pay the price for my sin, but to break sin in my life and to be my guide for how to live a godly life in a broken world, to give me a forever future with God. And listen, this isn't pie in the sky stuff, right? Just religious stuff, just Bible stuff, just churchy stuff. This is everyday real life that we're talking about when you follow Jesus. See, it was his faith in Jesus that led a man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer in World War II to lead opposition to Hitler. Many of you know I'm reading a biography of this man right now. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a theologian raised in Germany. And in the early days of Hitler's rise to power, many of us forget the early days before the actual Holocaust. Hitler passed laws that began to restrict people's freedoms, specifically Jewish people. And it was hailed as revolutionary because Germany was coming out of a bad history, and they had a shame history from the previous war they had been involved in. And so he was seen as a uniter and a proud mother country, and we've got to uphold us Germans in our society, and we've got to, country first. And a lot of Germany united behind this, but in the early days, Dietrich Bonhoeffer did not. He stood up and said, we in the church have to be united with Jewish believers. We cannot exclude. Hitler formed the German political state church, and a lot of religious faithful people went that way. Put his man in charge of it. And Bonhoeffer said, I will not exclude because that's not the gospel. Early in the war, he had an invitation to go to America and actually came here to teach. Could have sat the war out in America in safety and freedom, but he went back to Germany because his faith would not allow him to watch the people suffering in Germany while he was safe in America. He eventually became involved in a secret plot to assassinate and remove Hitler because of the evil he was doing and the atrocities he was doing to people. And it cost him his life on a German gallows. And he knew it was going to happen, but he did it anyway. Went back to Germany to lead the cause. Now, you know what? Maybe we think that's extreme. Doesn't apply to us. That was then, and he was brave and great for him and raw and yeah, all that stuff, right? But is it any different than really Jesus on his mission, where he would follow God and God's plan and not do what his brothers wanted him to do? Jesus never wavered. Have you ever thought about that? Never wavered from following God. Imagine the peer pressure his brothers were putting on him. Imagine the hatred he felt from his own Jewish leaders. The Jewish leadership, who were supposed to be his shepherds, hated him, and he knew it. And the reality was, they didn't hate him because they misunderstood him. They hated him because they understood him perfectly. They knew he was claiming to be God. They knew he was claiming to be a Messiah. See, Jesus wasn't a harmless Mr. Rogers who wouldn't step on anyone's toes. Jesus came with a kingdom to build, truth to proclaim, entrenched hypocrites to root out, and disenfranchised people to rescue. You better bet he made some people mad. So that's the Jewish leadership. That's his brothers. Let's talk about the third group. The third group's the crowd. The crowd's confused. Some people in the crowd are saying, you know what, he's a good guy. Other people in the crowd are like, nah, he's just a straight out deceiver. You see this in verses 12 and 13 of John, where John says, within the large crowd there, many people were whispering to each other about Jesus. Some said, oh, he's a really good man. Others are like, no, he fools everybody. But no one was brave enough to talk about Jesus openly because why? There were spies in the crowd. The Jewish leaders were listening. Okay? So the public's divided over Jesus. Some see him as a deceiver who's after his own power. Others think he's a really good guy. The first opinion is further away from the truth, but the second opinion doesn't exactly nail it either. He's just a good guy. Even those who see him as a good man don't fully understand who he is or what he's doing. You know, sometimes we presume that the truth about something is determined by the majority of people, right? And that's how the world works, right? So many of you know that I teach real estate classes. If somebody wants to become a realtor, I teach them how to get their license so they can go take the test and pass it the first time, right? And then they can become a great and famous realtor. So when I teach real estate classes, one of the classes I teach is called 23 Ways to Lose Your License. Isn't that exciting? You just get your license, and then you come to Bob, and you take a class that says, hey, here's 23 ways how you can now lose your new license. Isn't that exciting, right? And one of the ways that you can lose your license as a realtor is to be found guilty of a crime called moral turpitude. Now, I have to define that for a lot of people in my class because they don't know what that means. Moral turpitude is something which society says is morally bad. But the definition of moral turpitude says that moral turpitude, the rules that say moral turpitude, bad things, it's not just a cut and dried. These things are always bad. These things are always good. You know what the rules around moral turpitude say? The rules around moral turpitude say the rules are always changing. How do you like that? So some things that used to be bad, they ain't bad no more. Some things that used to be good, well, they can be bad now, right? So moral turpitude says that the rules are constantly changing, and if society doesn't think it's morally bad any longer, then guess what? It ain't bad no more. But God says morals don't change. The truth is not what the majority thinks. Truth is truth as defined by God. There is a right and there is a wrong, and it doesn't change. And at the festival, some people are saying Jesus is a good guy. And And some other people are saying, no, he's not a good guy. But it doesn't change the reality of the situation. He's claiming to be the Son of God, and he's going to prove it by not only dying on a cross, but by coming back to life. That's the proof. That remains true whether people agree with it or not. It's historically proven that it happened. So we have three groups of people with an opinion about Jesus, and all of whom are wrong. Now let's talk about this timeline here real quick. Remember in John 6, the crowd wanted Jesus to be their king so they could have more bread to eat. Remember that story we talked about? It's been a couple weeks now. And Jesus declined to accept that role, that position, just so they could have more food to eat, more free meals. That's really what's going on here in John 7 when we look at verses 6 and 8 through 10, where Jesus says to his brothers, you know what, the time isn't right yet, right? But any time is right for you. And he says, you go on, and I'm not going to go yet, because it's not my time. And then he stays in Galilee, but then after they had gone, he goes also. You ever wondered why Jesus waited instead of going up to the feast and making a strong appearance? We get a taste of that in John chapter 12, verses 18 and 19, where John tells us at the triumphal entry, which is coming, that after he entered triumphantly, remember, celebrated Easter, many people went out to meet Jesus, heard about this miracle. This is the raising of Lazarus from the dead. So the Pharisees said to each other, you can see that nothing is going right for us. What did they say? Look, the whole world's following him now. See, the Pharisees are in panic. And this demands a strong response for them. And avoiding that at this point in his ministry is why Jesus doesn't go to the festival yet. That climactic conflict's going to happen, and it's going to lead Jesus to a cross. But that day is not today. Not at this feast. Not yet. But it's coming. And we're going to travel with Jesus to that moment which changes everything. It's the moment that changed everything on this planet. It's the moment that is the reason that today is June 13th, 2021. The date in time even changed from the moment of Jesus' appearance on the planet. So let's talk about our takeaway today. The takeaway really in our lives is, who's Jesus? Who do you think he is? Do you operate your life based on who you think he is, or who he's revealing himself to be in your life? Think about it. Think about how we think about Jesus in our day and time. How do we think about Jesus? Is he supposed to heal me if I say the right prayers and do the right things and live my life right? Is he supposed to heal me? How about this? Is he supposed to give me cool things? Give me whatever I ask for in prayer? Bless me if I live the right way? Is he supposed to be and do who I want him to be? Can I order him around? You know, the Lord's Prayer says, give us this day our daily bread. So can I say to Jesus, give me a new Tesla? And he has to do it? I mean, I'd like that to happen, right? I mean, who really is Jesus? Do you really know who this man is? Have you ever really stopped and said, maybe I'm bringing Jesus what I think he's supposed to be? Last night at the concert, one of the lead singers, the daughter of the band's founder, was saying that the song she was going to sing is a song that has really ministered to her a lot. She was going to sing it one time, and somebody told her, said, you know what, you're not anointed enough to sing that song. Ooh. You know what they were saying to her? You're not right enough with God to get to sing that song. That's a preconceived opinion of who God is. And we do it all the time to people. We do it all the time to ourselves, don't we? Who is Jesus? Maybe the reality that we need to come to today is, maybe the truth is, I don't really know who Jesus is, and I've never taken enough time to stop and say, you know what, Jesus, I wipe away everything I've ever been taught about you or that I think about you. You show me straight out from your word. Just show me. See, the only way to know if you know the real Jesus is to find him in Scripture and then to follow him with no agenda on your part. What he says, I'll do. Like how Dietrich Bonhoeffer lived his life. Like how a man named Billy Graham lived his life. Like how Jesus' disciples lived their lives. Not a one of them ever recanted their faith. Like how Jesus lived his life. This morning, I was reading our devotional, those of you who are going through our book together where we read through the Bible in a whole year. And one of the scriptures we're in right now is Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy 18, there's a lecture happening to the people as they're kind of in the promised land and taking it. And Deuteronomy 18:15 says, the Lord your God will give you a prophet like me. This is Moses talking. The Lord your God will give you a prophet like me who is one of your own people. Listen to him. Who's he talking about? Jesus. Talking about Jesus. Do you see how beautifully God connects the story of the Old Testament to the New Testament directly to your life? John 5:24, John says that Jesus said, I tell you the truth, whoever hears what I say and believes in the one who sent me has eternal life. That person will not be judged guilty, but has already left death and entered life. And then in Acts 3, the words of Moses are repeated. Moses said, the Lord your God will give you a prophet like me, who is one of your own people. You must listen to everything he tells you. Are you listening to everything Jesus tells you? Are you listening? Are you following him with no agenda? Who's this man? Says he's a prophet. Who's this man? Says he's a preacher. Who is Jesus really? Is he the person in your life who you will follow wholeheartedly? We're going to ask you to think about as we move into our response time. In our response time, Kay and the worship team's going to come and they're going to lead us in a song, a beautiful song, Jesus Messiah. And as we sing, I want you to ask yourself, who is this man? Who do you think Jesus is? And then go to the cross and remember his sacrifice as you eat the bread and drink the juice. And then if you are willing to be a Jesus follower and commit to prayer, students and leaders who are going to camp this summer. Y'all, we got some students here who don't know Jesus at all. We're taking some of them to camp. If you're willing to pray for them, if you will come to the table and take any one of these, the orange ones are for junior high, the green ones are for high school, take more than one. Or we'll bring them to you. If you raise your hand, we'll bring them out to you. Willow and I'll distribute them. If you can't get up, we'll bring them to you. But spend some time going to the cross, going to where you are in your walk of faith. As you just ask yourself this morning, who is Jesus? The person I make him be, or the person he is? And am I willing to accept that?
Thank you.
I hope that's the thought you'll take with you as you go into your week. Jesus, just show me who you are. Wipe away preconceived ideas. Wipe away who I think you have to be. And just show me who you are so I can follow you with a pure heart fully. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. You're dismissed. Yeah. A couple? Okay. If you want to your own.
I am. I want to have both of them. You struggle to breathe. Well, I can breathe. I couldn't get the breathing to hit some of those notes. They're not on record, are we? I don't know. I hope not. I don't know. Oh, well.
Mike. Yeah, he was my preacher in Little Rock.
Hey, Miss Kay, good to have you back, by the way. Say hi to everybody.
It was great being here.
Good. We sure do miss y'all.
Here, I don't know where, the Northeast.
Say hi to Larry. Yeah,
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
that's right. When we gonna get that fishing going, right? Time for the crappie, right? And that's right, bass time too. Who's coming? Yeah. Now you know Bob missing you. Show up.
Have a good day.
Larry says have a good day. God loves you. God bless.